So I hope everything is going well. What I have in front of me here is the very first review assignment, the one that says Algebra 2 2020 Closure Work, day number 1, which you should all have completed by this morning. What I want to do is go through my answer key, explain why the answers are the way they are, and then we'll keep practicing this. And eventually I'll have new lessons for you guys other than review. But let's take a look at the first page here. So I'm hoping that you guys either put these in your notes or you put them, I'm reaching for my glasses here, you put them in your notes or you actually printed out the page and did the work right on here. Let's look at the first question. The answer should have been C. And the question started off a to the negative 2 over b to the negative 3. And because they're both negative exponents, that means they're unhappy with where they live, right? That means they want to move. So b cubed went into the numerator, a squared went into the denominator. Now at this point, back up here, it said a equals 3, b equals negative 2. So I substituted those in. And then I did negative 2 cubed, made negative 8, and 3 squared is 9. Now when you put these into your calculators, please always make sure you put parentheses around your numbers. And that's why I got choice C for the first one. Now, the next one. 4 points on the graph of f of x are shown below. And these are the 4 points. And it says which one would they work with. So what I did was, you can see I made XY charts. And I plugged the first numbers, these are the x's, and I wanted to see what y's I got. So it is going to be A, the first one. And I noticed I put 0, 1, 2, 3 down the x column. And then I plugged in. So I did 2 to the 0 power, which is 1. 2 to the first is 2. 2 squared is 4. 2 cubed is 8. And I got every single one of these points. So that's why it's A. But I wanted to show you why these 3 didn't work. If I plugged in 0 into this one, I did 2 times 0, 0, boom. Right off the bat, first point didn't hold, so B was out. Then in the next one, when I plugged in 0, I did 0 plus 1 is 1, so that looked good so far. Then when I plugged in 1, I got 1 plus 1 is 2. So far, so good. But when I plugged in 2 into the third one, I did not get 4. I got 3. Oops, I threw my pen. And for D, if you notice here, I got log base 2, 0. That can't even work. If you try to plug that in your calculator, you get an error. So that one's no good. So only choice A works for that one. Now, if you had a graphing calculator, all you have to do, and let me grab mine, right, just to show you, you could go to y equals, you could be 2 raised to the x, and then go to your table, and then you could see the values right there. Makes it a little quicker. Now, I did put up on Google Classroom a link to have a free one of these. It's the same exact one as you would see on my smartboard. So that's something you guys should do if you don't have a graphing calculator of your own at home. All right, next page. All right, next one, we have a graph. And it said, the graph of y equals f of x is shown below. So here's our picture. Which set lists all the real solutions of f of x equals 0? And I made a little note here, right? When does the graph, anytime you want to know when something's equal to 0, it means when does the graph hit the x-axis? And if you look, it hits the x-axis at 3 different places. At negative 2, at 0, and 3. And that's why the answer is D. So anytime you see this, it means when does the graph hit the x-axis? All right, next one, number 4. In simplest form, what's the square root of radical negative 300? Well, you see a negative in the radical, you pop your eye out. That means it's going to be an I question. So the next thing I did was I wrote it as I radical 300. And then I broke up 300 to be radical 100, radical 3. And the square root of 100 is 10. So that's how I got 10i, but you can't take the square root of 3. So choice C. All right, next one. Factored completely, what is this guy? So this one I'm actually going to do. I have it written out real neatly here, but I sort of want you guys to watch me do it. Grab a pen here. All right. The first thing when I notice when I look at this, and I'm going to post these up as well. I'm going to scan these in and post them on Google Classroom along with this video so you guys can actually look at it. Here is the original. And when I look at all three of these, they have a 2 and an x squared in common. So I pull that out first. And that leaves me with 6x squared plus 5x minus 6. Now I have to factor this. And this is where we're going to use our little technique. So I'm going to do this off to the side. You want to do this guy. And this is when you multiply the first and the last together, which makes a negative 36. And then I'm going to make a list of all the things that multiply to be 36. 2 times 18, right? 3 times 12. 4 times 9. And I'm looking for a combo that'll make 5, which would be this guy. Okay? So now I'm going to rewrite this as 6x squared. Right? Now it's got to be negative 36. It's a positive 5. Those are my signs. So plus 9x minus 4x minus 6. And this is where we do our grouping. Right? Those two have a 3x in common, which would make 2x plus 3. Bring down your minus sign. These guys have a 2 in common. So negative 2 times what makes negative 4x? 2x. Negative 2 times what makes negative 3? Negative 6, I'm sorry, so positive 3. So this guy now becomes 2x plus 3. You put the leftovers in here. And don't forget to bring him down. Like that. And that's how I got choice D. And that's how you factor. All right, next one. Number 6. All right, the solutions of the equation y squared minus 3y equals 9, all right, are what? Now take a look at how these look. This is screaming quadratic formula. So, in order to use the quadratic formula, I wrote a little note here, you've got to set this equation equal to 0 first. So I'm going to subtract 9 over to the other side, which is what we have right here. And now I'm going to plug in. Right? So I plugged into the quadratic formula. Negative negative becomes a positive 3, right? Plus minus. I put this in my calculator and got radical 45 in the denominators too. Now we got to break up radical 45. That breaks up to be radical 9, radical 5, and the square root of 9 is 3. And that's how I got choice D for that one. All right, number 7 actually doesn't require any work at all, right? Number 7, we have a negative exponent, right? Negative exponent means it wants to be a fraction. So that's why choice A is out and choice C is out. Then our fraction is 2 over 3. And remember, guys, remember flower power? The numerator is the power it gets. The 3 in the denominator is the root. So that's why it's the cubed root, because we have the 3 raised to the power of 2. So there's B. All right, now number 8 was a topic we did right before school wrapped up. This is where we want to make common bases. And what number do both 2 and 4 come from? They both come from 2. So I'm going to change the number 4 into 2 squared. And I'm going to keep him. So that's what I've got so far. Now, this 2 has to get multiplied to both of these. So that's how I got 2x squared plus 8x. Now, once they have the same base, you can work with just the exponents. So it's 2x squared plus 8x equals negative 6. Now we have to solve this. Now, just like number 6 back up here, when you have a quadratic, something with a squared, you always want to set it equal to 0. So we're going to do the same thing here because there's a squared in it. I'm going to add over the 6. Now, see how all of these have a 2? I divided out by the 2 to shrink the question up. You do it all the way across. Now I have this guy. And this can easily be factored into x plus 3, x plus 1, which means the answers of x equals negative 3 pop out and x equals negative 1. And that's how I got C. All right, number 9. Now I have the work all done out on here already, but I do want to do this one out slower, right? For number 9, and if you did it right, again, the answer is going to be B. We have x squared plus y squared minus 2x plus 6y plus 3 equals 0. Now I'm hoping when you see this, you're like, oh my God, Miss Duffy, it's one of those circle questions. So this is where you make the families. We put the x's together in their house. Don't forget the plus sign between it. The y squares live in their house. And then the plain number or the constant, we move to the other side. Now this is where we use completing the square. So you take negative 2. So we take half of negative 2, which is negative 1, square it, we get a 1. So in the first parenthesis, I'm adding on a 1. So this is new. Bring down the plus sign. Now we're going to do the same thing for the y's. We're going to do half of 6, which is 3, square it's 9. So that's new. Now remember, whatever's new on this side has to get added new to the other side. So over here now we have 7, 8, and now these become squares, right? This is going to be x, and the trick is it's always the number before you squared it. And this is going to be y, and it's a positive 3. So that becomes our equation, which is choice B. All right, and finally, the last one on this page, number 10, right? We have a radical equation. We haven't done one of these in a long time. Right? So 10 is radical x plus 3 equals x minus 3. Now, most of you remember that when you see a radical equation, you can square both sides. And that gets rid of that radical. So that just becomes x plus 3. However, over here needs to be written twice so that I can distribute this. So I bring this down. So that becomes x squared minus 3x minus 3x plus 9. So I bring down my x plus 3. That's x squared minus 6x plus 9. Now, once again, this is the third time this happened on the same page. You have an x squared, a quadratic. You always want to set these equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract stuff over. Now, it's very important. On this side, there is nothing left, so put the 0. And that becomes x squared minus 7x plus 6. Then we're going to factor. Keep your 0. 0 equals x minus 6, x minus 1. So the answers I'm getting are x equals 6, x equals 1. Now, let's take a look at my work. Notice I only picked A, not C. And that is because in radical equations, you have to check. When I plugged the number 6 into this, I got radical 9 equals negative 3, which can't happen. 3 can't equal negative 3. So I had to reject the 6, which is why I crossed it off here. Then when I plugged in 1, it worked. So only the number 1 works. Now, in a multiple choice setting like this, do you actually have to show all this work? No. You could plug in the numbers and see which one works. However, the Regents does love, every other year they switch back and forth. One year it's multiple choice, one year it's not. Now, I don't know if we're going to have a Regents or not this year, but I'm still going to practice both ways just in case. Okay. Last page. The product means we're going to multiply these guys together. All right. So, I to the 7th times I to the 5th. When you multiply things, you add their exponent. So that's going to be I to the 12th. Now, we've got to figure out what that is. And this is where we always divide by 4, because there are 4 different i's, if you remember. Right? I to the 0 is 1. I to the 1st is I squared is negative 1. and I cubed is negative I. So since there are 4 different ones, I'm going to divide. 4 goes into 3. 4 goes into 12 3 times with no remainder. That means that's equal to I to the 0. Now I'm going to show you guys a cool trick in case you forgot that. Your calculators can do it. Right? Above the decimal point is an I. I don't know if you've ever noticed that. But you could pull up I and raise it to the 0 power, and you get 1. Then you go I raised to the first power is I squared. Look at that, guys. So again, that's above the decimal point in blue, so you want to hit the second button. And that's something we can use now towards the end of the year. All right, last 2 questions. These 2 are a little tricky, all right? So I'm actually going to do 12 out in detail. The answer should have been negative x radical 3x. So let's take a look at 12. I'm going to do it out slowly for you guys. In 12, I've got 5 radical 3x cubed minus 2 radical 27x cubed. So my job in simplifying is to break this down as tiny as I can. So I'm going to break this up. So that's 5 radical 3. Now, we got to break up x cubed. You can't take the square root of x cubed. So you want to think, what's the closest number to 3 that is divisible by 2? And that is 2. So you got x squared and x to the first, right? We're going to do the same thing here. 27 breaks up into 9 times 3. And then x squared breaks up into x squared. And now I'm going to go across and take the square root. All right, 5's already out. He's stuck inside the radical because he can't take the square root of 3. But x squared now can pop out and become an x. So this now becomes 5x radical 3x to the first. So he's done. Bring down the minus sign. Now over here, 2's already out. Square root of 9 is 3. So I can put these 2 together and get a 6. He's stuck inside. This one's definitely stuck inside. This one, an x pops out. So this x can go there. And stuck inside are still the radical 3x. Now, see how they both have a radical 3x? That means we can put these together. So 5x minus 6x is negative x radical 3x. And that is how I got that. And again, I have this all written out on here. I'm going to scan this in so you guys can see that as well. And finally, number 13, we have this fractions over fractions. This is what we call a complex fraction. And all it is common denominator work. So let's take a look at 13. Right? And 13, it's 1 over 2 minus 4 over d all over 1 over d plus 3 over 2d. So when I look at this, you guys, it's 2 separate math problems. One in the numerator, one in the denominator. So I'm just going to make a bigger fraction bar. Look up here only, so we're ignoring this. What would my common denominator need to be here? And that is a 2d. So right here needs a d. So I'm going to give the top a d. This needs a 2. So I'm going to multiply that by 2. So now I have d over 2d minus 8 over 2d. So the numerator becomes d minus 8 over 2d. So the top is done. Now I'm going to focus all my attention down here. So again, I need a common denominator. So this guy needs a 2. So that needs a 2. He's already 2d. So this becomes 2 over 2d plus 3 over 2d. When I put this together, it makes 5 over 2d. Now, fraction bar means division. So this question is really d minus 8 over 2d divided by 5 over 2d. And this is where we do keep, change, flip. And I'm hoping at this point you're like, ah, this guy can cancel with this guy. And I'm left over with d minus 8 over 5. And that's, if I can find the page, how I got that for the last one. So that's your first review assignment. I know you're probably a little rusty. You've been out of school for a little while. If this one you're a little choppy on and you forgot things, it's going to happen. But we're going to do 1 or 2 more of these review things. In fact, we're definitely doing the second one. So for homework, you are to move on to the second review thing. Get your answers plugged in to the link so I can see how you did, which ones you got wrong. I am looking at those. And that's due Monday morning. And then Monday I'm going to put the video up on how I did number 2. Right? And then eventually we are going to move on to some new topics once I've got you all warmed up again. So I hope this went well. I'm going to scan this in. This is going to be posted along with this video on Google Classroom, so you could print this out and look at it as well. And again, guys, you can always replay the videos. All right? Hope things are well. I'll see you soon.